Okay, hello everyone, and George Webb here at the Cancer Conference in Chicago. A big push by Activa and Immunity Bio here for replacing immunity. Is it the flip side of other CIA programs to reduce immunity with HIV, with influenza, with aerosolized anthrax, coronavirus? We don't know, but it looks like it. We'll keep following it. They're expanding the trials here to go out to pancreatic cancer from bladder cancer. Again, all those people in the trials, great, but we just don't want to see it be a cancer vaccine for kids that don't have cancer, right? Gardasil, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds, not a good thing. We're just trying to draw a distinction here, make sure that we take the appropriate safeguards with children. But the other big concepts here are the premonition. How did everybody know about all these things that were going to happen with reduced immunity? And we go back to Virginia Benassi in 2009 with lymphocytopenia. Thrombolymphocytopenia is a lymphopenia, which is a lack of white blood cells. Dr. Sun Shang tweets out about lymphopenia today, which is the kind of the calling card of cancer, calling card of leukemia, calling card of HIV, right? As the canary in the mine shaft, right? This is why Deborah Birx is coming over to Palantir. This is why the various cancer folks are coming over from the cancer moonshots to Palantir. This is why the national database seems to be put together by Trump. It seems to be this reduced immunity. They're adding this medical information to Palantir, and that seems to be the key thing that's going on here. And the key replacement therapy is Dr. Sun Shang with Activa. Of course, you've got Wesley Clark, you've got John Brennan, and all of them who seem to know all about replacement therapy for immunity. So we'll keep following it. There's all your key sponsors here at the conference, and we're wrapping up the 4 days here right now.
Hello, welcome to Neighborhood News, Saturday Night Live with George Webb. George Webb Investigates. Hey, George, how was Chicago?
It was good. Thank you for setting that up, Aaron. Thank you for, and I see Mark coming in. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Mark's coming in here. You can hear everything okay? I think we'll get you on one of those mics there. Yep, live action here in the studio, coming across the International News Desk.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well,
you know, Sun Shang and Immunity Bio really set that one up. I just saw it as we were coming across in the notes and in the research and everything. Certainly a lot of big sponsors at that event, the who's who of cancer research, and everybody is looking forward to Activa over there, it appears, huh?
Well, they certainly pushed it. They certainly pushed it really hard, and you had focused in, you know, and kind of given me the juice of the seminar before it started. You told me about the 2 Immunity Bio speakers out of the 500. If you saw the program and you saw the number of tracks they had, and it was like 500 different presentations, so there was like, you couldn't possibly have extracted the juice if you hadn't told me up front when they were.
I guess all you got to do is follow Immunity Bio, and you're doing a pretty good job. Right?
Yeah. No, you did a great job.
Bio, we're on our way, you know, and that's what it is.
Yeah, and you look at it, and it's the metadata. You know, I see the great Karma Doc is in the audience. You follow people in the military that have a background. Karma Doc's talking about John Brennan and Wesley Clark. You follow people who are not in the medical community, and you then say, why are they on the board here at Immunity Bio? Why is John Brennan a part of this? Why is Wesley Clark? And we have tracked Wesley Clark to the potential use of an aerosolized anthrax all the way back to the Kosovo War. She was in the Kosovo War. She wasn't in that part of the Kosovo War, but more over toward Bosnia-Herzegovina. There was very strong evidence that some type of aerosolized something was used and killed everybody, killed people on both sides in order to stop the Serbs, just because the Muslim army wasn't making headway. And then Carbadoc here again mentions the Palantir at the same time of this conference, almost coordinated Clockwork Orange, almost down to the second. You had Deborah Birx coming over to Palantir and Alex Karp. That's never a good sign. A CIA database vendor brings in the person who is the top person in reducing immunity. for 30 years in Africa with PEPFAR, and then they bring over Simon. Remember Simon did the Cancer Moonshot Project with Dolston. He works with Patrick Soon-Shiong in Winber. They bring him in there, and you have all these people who've worked on reduced immunity coming into Palantir, and it scares the bejesus out of you.
Certainly, that's what everybody's talking about here. That and Trump, the Trump-Musk divorce that we'll get to. We'll dive into that, I'm sure, throughout the show here, and the coordination of that with Palantir, the Palantir announcement coming out, and then the Trump-Musk breakup. And is the whole thing just a way to dossier people and just continue figuring out which camp is everyone in? Who are they loyal to? If it's free, you're the product. And so as much as we appreciate the purchase of Twitter and all those wonderful things, it's like, well, are they just continuing to dossier all of us into, put us on that whiteboard for, how MAGA or how deplorable are we? Right. And then they'll spray us in, phosphorescent pink or phosphorescent yellow or phosphorescent, pick your color just to, be sure they've got us labeled from above of how deplorable and how MAGA we are. And over here, we're more like a 6 out of 10 MAGA, right? I don't know. We're I don't know. MAGA. Right. But
Mark, what do you think? What do you think about all this?
Yeah. Everything working? Your headphones working?
Yeah, well,
sitting down to digest here.
Yeah. As far as I don't know if the Trump Musk breakup, I look at it more as maybe to just stop the vandalism of Tesla dealerships and other, various actions that were being carried out against Elon Musk. But I don't think the end of it is, and I don't know. It seems more like National Enquirer affair to me. That
well, that makes sense. That kind of makes sense because the stock of Tesla had gone down. SpaceX has a launch coming up on Tuesday. You've pissed off half your customers, so sales of Tesla are way down. Now this could be a way of getting your people back. Your Democratic buyers back, and then you still keep your Republican buyers back. Maybe.
Well, and maybe it's just another way to just poke at Trump, because Elon. If it wasn't for him, I mean, he's really got to be the one that was responsible for getting Trump over the top in this election.
I don't know. People say that. I don't even know if I believe that.
I think he's right. I think Pennsylvania for sure, Ohio and Michigan probably. But here we go.
No. This is SpaceX here. This is the SpaceX website. Oh,
well,
it was enough to bring enough constituencies together to make that happen.
I think he did. I think he did.
Side especially, that there were key Democrats that not like the direction the party's going in, that this creates a jump ball, in the midterms and in the next election.
I agree with that. And you're playing SpaceX, and SpaceX has a big launch coming up on Tuesday. This was the immediate go-to where they said, we're going to cancel this Axiom 4 launch. The guy that they put in for this NASA administrator, which was Jared Isaacson. He had been up twice in this, the Dragon space vehicle here, the Falcon 9 engines that you see there going. So this thing is all wrapped around space. Now, I've said that I think it's there's Jared Isaacman. Hasn't paid his tab. He hasn't paid his tab yet at Trump Taj Mahal.
So that's Atlantic City. Is that Atlantic City Taj Mahal?
Yeah, had a story about Isaacson here. Okay, that essentially what did him in was it came to light that he was a mega donor for the Democrats, and it was like using like you're giving all this money to Schumer, and then so it was like, are you really MAGA? Are you coming in as a plant? No.
Right. And I think it's because he didn't pay his debts as of gambler in 2008, 2009, and Trump remembered that. because they had to sue to get their money, and they only got 650,000 of the million. But as Mark is saying, when you give money to Chuck Schumer, that's about as low as you can go. And that's about as poor a judgment that you can exercise, right? And he was a mega donor. And then now he says, well, I gave more money. And plus he's a billionaire at 42. How does that happen? He's a big partner of MGM, Bet MGM, sports betting. Remember that you before you're born, but the off-track betting they used to have for the horses. And Al Capone used to run the racing wire, the syndicate. That's where the term syndicate comes from, is Al Capone said, why should I be paying all these families in the Cosa Nostra of all these different cities? I'll just take it over because I know where they are and I want to control the betting.
Now you make me want to watch The Sting.
Yeah, well, that's what The Sting was all about, these bookie joints and so forth. And this guy's company, Shift 4, was all about placing these bets. He has a thing called SkyTab. SkyTab allowed you to go around to all the different casinos and restaurants and run up a tab. And this guy ran up 4 tabs of $250,000 a pop at Trump Taj Mahal. So you get the idea here that, wait a minute, there's some kind of DARPA kid, pushing this kid forward, making him a billionaire by the time he's 42. When to sign a note in Trump Taj Mahal for $250,000, that means that you're one of the high roller gamblers in 2005. If you wind the clock back 20 years, that means he was 22 when he was asking for markers. There's Little Miss Marker. There was a movie done, Little Miss Marker. That means you were making a lot of money at 22 to sign a $250,000 marker, and to sign 4 of them, to have your checks bounce on the first one, and then have 3 more bounce. That's an amazing amount of money that he was making, right?
Unicorn startups.
Yeah, at a very young
that would be something to check out. Like, how many businesses, how many stock issues did you create for, whatever, unicorn, zombie, because that's gone, that went through, still probably going on today.
How much? 2010 wasn't that long ago, but I mean, like, who uses checks anymore? Bad checks, I can't imagine a casino would still even.
Well, those were casino markers. They weren't really checks, but
okay, it's not like you're writing a check like an old lady at the grocery store or something.
But if you do the math and work it back 20 years, he's 22 years old writing that's when he opened the account. And again, I think if he went into that meeting and he didn't say, look, Mr. Trump, I screwed you guys out of $1 million. I paid $650 back. I know you had to sue me. Here's $350 to the Taj Mahal. I don't know if this will get new flowers or what it'll get at the Taj Mahal, but I just want to clear the air. But he thought he would somehow slide under and of course, us as citizen journalists, we caught this, right? And Trump's not going to forget about the 350,000. And you're never going to forget about somebody giving the money to Chuck Schumer either. So I agree with Mark on that. That's another thing that should disqualify you. But that's what I think did Isaacson in. But the big thing I just wanted to say is this space race. The Axiom launch in 2 days in Cape Canaveral. I covered the launch, by the way, when he did the spacewalk, the 2021, when Jared Isaacson did the spacewalk. I was in Cape Canaveral for that launch. This one, the idea is Axiom is going to be the new replacement for the International Space Station. The International Space Station is 30 years old. It's $100 billion. They're trying to get rid of it. The old senators are trying to hold on to it because they want to use the shuttle still and all that jobs in Texas that supports this, in Florida, right? There he is.
And so what is it? So what, you like go up in this thing and then you just walk around, or like you just
he has the highest spacewalk
there a little bit.
Yeah, he has the highest spacewalk since the Gemini spacewalks, 600 miles up, and he made a sports bet, by the way, from space. And if I would have loved to have seen Trump answer it and go, and you still owe me 350,000, and we're still tracking you. You're not getting away from this. I would have loved to see Trump cut in on that. But my point is that when you're setting up, they want to set up this new space station to go up against China. China has this CSS space station, military space station. This is kind of like a fortress. This is the old Star Wars thing where you have a space fortress, and you have to send it up in pieces. You have to send it up in like one at a time. Bathroom, then you send up the living room, then you send up the kitchen, then you send up the. So that's what Axiom is doing, and Cam Ghaffarian is his partner. So he wants to put a guy in there to get rid of that old space station and let's push this new one out there really quick. And that's why he was pissed at Trump, because this is really going to slow down the schedule of SpaceX launches.
This is the assemblage of the Axiom space station, or I guess this is a rendering in AI.
Right.
This is what it's supposed. This is like the different little pieces. So like each piece is built on Earth, of course, and then brought up there separately and then assembled like this in space.
So go
piece
back
by
to May
piece.
of 1973, and you got Skylab. That was the end of our space program, because we were going to
Skylab.
have the Skylab space station, and that's what the shuttle was all about, was being able to shuttle our way up to the space station that we went into a joint venture with the Russians on. And
And you remember that the song, I'm changing my name to Skylab and changing my name to Chrysler. And then I just got hit by a piece of our national debt.
I'm changing our. I'll see if I can find
And
it.
this poor guy in the song gets hit by Skylab and says it's doing its reentry. Remember, the Skylab came down, and I can't remember where it hit, maybe in Africa or somewhere. And now, instead of just letting the ISS come back and just land somewhere for free in the Indian Ocean or whatever, SpaceX is actually getting the deorbiting money. I think it's $1 billion to deorbit the International Space Station.
was that in the big beautiful bill? I guess.
Yeah, it's approved already. Yeah. Scroll down and see how the Skylab ended up and where they landed. That's a funny thing, because it's always fun, like a parlor bet, a sports bet.
Overview, configuration,
See where it hits, to see where it lands.
operation background, early studies. I know people hate scrolling. Air Force Apollo. This is a long page here. I guess I should maybe go to the side here. Just like where it fell. You're saying?
Yeah, where it landed. But there was several Skylabs, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I don't. It's definitely going to be the tie into cancer here is, for some reason, cancer cells grow much faster in microgravity than they do on Earth. So if you're Dr. Sun Shang and you're trying to come up with a cancer, Anktiva, let's say, if you test Anktiva against cancer in space, you're going to have answers a lot quicker than if you were testing people down here. And that's the tie-in. They were doing, the next one's going to be triple negative breast cancer. The one before that was some kind of colon cancer. So each one of these Axiom missions is mainly cancer. Cancer is the big thing now for medicine in space.
Here, let's see what we might have here.
Say they may delay their flights as America's Skylab space station falls to Earth in the next 36 hours. Some countries say they'll stop all their flights as Skylab comes down, but the chances of it hitting anyone are said to be very remote. Tonight's check on the
This is what we're talking about,
85
right?
tons of Skylab shows that the space lab's less than 120 miles up and will fall out of the sky late tomorrow or early on Wednesday. Skylab's next close approach to Britain will be at 11:30 tomorrow morning. It'll cross the Scillies and Guernsey. Our science editor Peter Fairley assesses the chances of anyone being hit by Skylab.
So I see. So this was the world was captured by if Skylab was going to land on their head. Here, later plans to reuse Skylab were stymied by delays in the development of the space shuttle, and Skylab's decaying orbit could not be stopped. Skylab's atmospheric reentry began on July 11th, 1979, amid worldwide media attention. Before reentry, NASA ground controllers tried to adjust Skylab's orbit to minimize the risk of debris landing in populated areas, targeting the South Indian Ocean, which was partially successful. So debris showered Western Australia, and recovered pieces indicated that the station had disintegrated lower than expected. As the Skylab program drew to a close, NASA's focus had shifted to the development of the space shuttle. So Western Australia / Indian Ocean.
Yeah, and the what they do occasionally, as you gradually start descending, the gravity up to the Kármán line is about 90% of Earth's gravity. So the Kármán line, and you still have aerodynamics of a space plane. You know, our Skoda space plane, our neighborhood news, the Skoda space plane is still has some kind of aeronautics at 62 miles up. But when you get above that, you need to retro rocket yourself up into a little bit higher orbit every once in a while. And that's what the Chinese are doing. And that's what we just decided not to keep doing with Skylab. But most of the stuff, most of the space junk that's out there is above 100 miles up there, more like 200 miles. And it just keeps going and going forever because of the weak gravitational pull at that 200 miles plus, you know.
So ultimately, though, you know, Elon is acting like it's all about this big, beautiful bill, which I'll tell you, the BBB thing with Build Back Better and now Big Beautiful Bill. And, you know, I just don't like it, you know, but regardless of that editorialization, it's not really about the bill, though, is ultimately.
The bill's not going to pass. So it's going to go, you know, going to have to go back and do it anyhow. So the whole point of the argument is moot. You know, from what I just see, you know, it's all theatrics.
Which is why it makes sense that it's more of a space, an in-your-face space, you know, eye-poking contest over Isaacson or Isaacman or, you know, whatever else could be going on there behind the scenes, that it isn't exactly about the big, beautiful bill.
I agree. This is all about space and how do you sell Space Wars, Star Wars to the American people? What we're about ready to enter into is a new Cold War. And the new Cold War is going to be about space, and the new enemy is going to be China. And this is what, if you were around when Mark and I were around, this is what they talked about when Star Wars first came out in 1984, right? Only it was the Russians, because the Russians hadn't collapsed yet. So now they got to keep it going. They got to keep the tension going. So they're dropping Russia out, and now they're the enemy. But now China, who we've been leaking all these secrets to for 30 years with Hillary Clinton, now China is the enemy, right? But you have to have something, a fear, in order to control the masses, and this is going to be the next thing. But they're easing into it very gradually, because it's not like blowing up at the Nevada test site and showing a huge mushroom cloud, and then showing a huge mushroom cloud in Kazakhstan as the Russians blow theirs up, and everybody's like mass formation psychosis, right? A space station doesn't scare you. You know, with people running around like 2001 Space Odyssey, and they're running around in a circle, and they're drinking Tang, and they're squeezing food from a tube. You don't get scared about that. And you don't think, why should I be so scared of Kellogg Brown and Root lasers? You know, I mean, and KBR is the one that bought the company from Isaacson, right? So, or Cam Gafarian sold the company. Why should I be afraid of Kellogg Brown and Root space lasers and Space Command and the Space Force, Kellogg Brown and Root? Right back to the same people who did the Manhattan Project and all the mass formation psychosis since then. So this is another, they can't figure it out. How do we get people as scared with this new Chinese Cold War, space Cold War, as we did with the Manhattan Project?
Well, I think they started here with this election in South Korea, and now something like South Korea is coming under the sphere of Xi Jinping. So, I mean, that's going to be a real change to our relationship with our other Asian partners in the Pacific, and who else might be chipped away.
Well, Mark, I agree with you. Carmadoc's saying Golden Dome, and let's sell Golden Domes to everybody. And now we have this missile war. The Rails brothers have made enough money off of titanium on both sides, the Ukrainians and the Russians, and then swarming drones. Let's make swarming drones a part of everybody's nightmares. Let's have the Wizard of Oz flying monkeys for every kid. Every child should go to bed fearing swarming drones and missile attacks. So that's why we're going to need the Golden Dome.
I was thinking the other day that we are like in Cold War 2.0 right now. I mean, and it's different, but it's not really different. I mean, bioweapons are scarier than nuclear weapons. And do I mean a
I
lot
think
of
the mushroom
nuclear?
cloud.
What's that?
They're looking for the mushroom cloud, and there was so much easier to sell when you had a mushroom cloud. I went up to Jared Leto. We had our citizen journalist. We met Jared Leto. He showed us into the Laurel Canyon there, where they made all the films about the mushroom clouds and so forth. And it was an easier time then. Hey, if I show you 166-mile cloud going into the sky, and I show you vaporized humans with all kinds of burns, from Hiroshima, and then I tell you the new ones are 1,000 times worse, that really scares, that really keeps the kids up at night, right? And this one, is it the bioweapon? Is it aerosolized anthrax? What is it? And so I think they might have to start saying the China dust. They might have to start saying, well, it might not have leaked from a lab after all. It might have been China that attacked us with the aerosolized coronavirus.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking at. So I've got your Substack on the page here. SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket Dragon spacecraft launches from the launch complex, Kennedy Space Center. So, I mean, it got really heightened there for a minute, and I think everybody's settled down to at least kind of be like, let's let the space stuff keep going here, guys. As much as like we fought over it. Okay, Trump, we're not going to hang out. We're not going to talk anymore. You denied Isaacman. I got pissed. Just keep the money flowing to SpaceX, and I'll make sure I get the rockets up there and get the astronauts up and down, and this will all blow over. That seems like where we're at right now. Is don't mess with the rockets.
Right. And go ahead, Mark.
I just think we're moving into a wartime. I think we probably are in war, and it could be just a case of now you've got to keep your cards closer. You've got to really worry about espionage and leaks. And so your loyalty is going to be like tested in a redoubled fashion to what normally would be going on. And so this could be with Heisman too. It's just can't trust the guy, because of like these kinds of behaviors, because Chinese have got a lot of communists have got a lot of, infiltration into every aspect of our life.
Yeah. And if the false flag Operation Northwoods, everybody remembers where, hey, we, say the Cubans hijacked a plane, run it into the Empire State Building, that was Operation Northwoods that Lansdale came up with. I could see some kind of Operation Northwoods here, only north. They should probably call it North Carmen, north of the Carmen line, because the International Space Station as it is not really delivering any new juice, if you will. They really want to move to this other technology. The only reason we're holding on to it, it's like P-51 fighters, and this is something that Jared Isaacson said, is we've got these P-51s from the factory, and we're now fighting F-35 warfare, and it's the senators from the states where the P-51s are made, the prop fighters, are saying, I don't want to let my industry go, my warfighting industry go. Well, we're going to get blown out of the sky if we hold on to the P-51s against F-35s, and so that's what's going on here. So I do think Mark is correct that there could be some kind of, I don't think it'll be space lasers or anything like Kellogg Brown and Root type of space war, Star War, George Lucas type thing. But I do think there could be some kind of espionage to either doctor or sabotage the launch on Tuesday. So watch out, Kennedy Space Center. It is by a U.S. Air Force base and a Navy base. Or altering this is what I really feel like, if they altered the retro rockets of the International Space Station and cause that to prematurely come down like Skylab, and then it could be traced back to espionage, sort of a Zimmerman letter. They have to come up with some kind of mass formation psychosis to grab the attention of everyone, to put every child in fear before they go to bed at night.
That is what they're going. This is a F-35 versus P-51 in the air there that you're looking at.
Yeah, They have to slow the F-35 down as much as they possibly can to get those two things to fly together.
Sure,
You-
sure. Yeah, I
There's
see.
no pilot in the world that would want to do this dogfight ever. And this is really what's going on with the International Space Station. Ted Cruz, especially, he's holding on to this and saying, we can't get away. It's called SLS. We can't give it up. No, we have to give it up. Jared Isaacson has said so.
Well,
And-
we do, because in the public's mind, space station, in our mind, what going back, what was in our mind was Cara Delay and Gary Lockwood in this big round cylindrical space station. There was like a midway point between Earth and the moon, and we had and that would have been 20 years ago. Okay, that we had all of this. Okay, so we spent all of these billions of dollars with that, put into the public's mind that this is what we're doing in space. Okay, and we keep getting these little, we're not moving, towards the moon and Mars and out and colonization and those kinds of things. It's more like we're setting up just another layer of surveillance to go with the prison planet, with the walls around the highways and the, and the stack of back housing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you see here the F-35.
Here, we'll put it back on there. Yeah, there we go. Here we go.
Doesn't even catch its breath to just out climb the the P-51, and it wouldn't be a happy story. But this is it, and somehow the American people have to be tuned in. Like Mark says, we were taught about 2001 Space Odyssey in 1969. There was going to be like he's saying, Gary Lockwood, the star of 2001 Space Odyssey, there was going to be a space station that was orbiting. We were going to have shuttles going back and forth and everyday humans traveling just like commercial aircraft. This is things that have been put out 50 years ago, right? Now we have to, in order for us to fund a huge part of our national budget, we have to see the war, right? And maybe this Trump versus, Musk is, the I told you so moment where Elon says, I told you we should have had a better space station. You Trump, you dummy. And that's why China just knocked out our space station. So I don't know, but it seems like Elon's kind of a DARPA kid. And it seems like he's going to be on the winning side.
What if these were, avatars or, fakes that just did this as an act?
Well,
And it's not the real. It wasn't the real.
Well, it's Star Wars.
Wasn't the real Elon? You never know. So
certainly that black eye prior to the spat was a strange. Are they signaling to us? Right. I mean, we don't want to get too far into those weeds, maybe, because it's neither here nor
Well,
there.
I think X.
The black eye is like.
I think X did it. I think X did it, and poked his dad, and it's because he doesn't ride in the helicopter anymore, and X,
Trump. I want to go with Trump, Daddy.
yeah, he's like my wingman. I'm not going to get to ride in the helicopter anymore. Right now,
But I'm putting it in the same category with Cash Patel and Bongino coming out, and saying yes,
I definitely think those guys need an auto pen. We had Pocahontas that was signing all the things. Pocahontas won 256th as much Cherokee as me. Pocahontas doing all the auto pen. We need to get Cash an auto pen. We need to get Dan Bongino an auto pen, because the J6 documents is just a pen stroke, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the wingman. The 9/11 documents, Epstein documents, RFK, JFK. We still need to get their last JFK. I think X is pissed off because this would be the coolest thing as a 5-year-old, or I don't know how old X is, but as a 7-year-old.
4
Flying.
yeah. 4. But yeah, I mean, this
4-year-old.
So, but okay, so Musk's got satellites that are seemingly able to do everything while in motion. It's almost like there's not need for warehouses anymore in the trucking industry. They just put them on the trucks and the trucks just go live time, you know, and there's very few warehousing resources anymore. I somewhat feel like maybe Musk is making a strange play here in that he's already past the space station stage. Because like if you look up in the sky, you can see his satellites moving, not all the time, but oftentimes. And you know, it's like they're able to be in motion, doing seemingly what a space station would do. So I wonder, he seems like maybe he's ahead of everybody and he's just you know, playing them.
Well,
I don't know
But,
who's to say. Yeah.
but that all comes with, okay, like the whole, we're getting back to like just in time delivery. We used to have it when we had the bread truck and the milk truck, everything went. And the warehouses and all the storage came with the inflation because you ended up with shortages, or you'd want to buy a
Interesting,
whole
okay.
bunch at this low price. So you'd have it for, you know, for a long time without having to raise the price or just being able to have it available. That disrupted that, you know, what used to be a local market.
I was just saying that as a metaphor,
But
maybe
it's,
for
you know,
the
but
just
it's
because
a-
it's like I wonder if the space station. I do think a lot of this is about the space station, and that is all there. It's just, you know, I wonder because like, Elon seems like he's already past
But they're
the
trying to
space
build it
station
just in
stage.
time with the, you know, the drone delivery and
Yeah,
all of that that's coming, you know, where they want us to, you know.
the drone delivery is definitely coming, and Bezos has already put out a video about the drone space station and Amazon dropping like a stork with the babies are at the beginning of the movie Dumbo, if you remember. So,
yeah.
so that's already out there. That's already been envisioned, and it's sort of almost like elites saying, "We want you to live. We'll send one resupply to you. We want your city to live. We'll resupply you, and then we're above it all." Right. So there's, yeah, I, I made a little graphic here showing is Elon really that upset about a $2.5 trillion deficit? Mars is going to be 100 trillion if he's serious about colonizing Mars. So, yeah, I think we've had a lot of space literature and a lot of space lore with space, with Star Wars and you know, the various other, you know, Avengers and all this other stuff that happens in space. So we've been pretty cultured about this. Whatever they come up with is going to have to be pretty good to engage us in this new Cold War.
So how about I'm gonna play your Twitter video, 2-minute Twitter of.
Yeah, but I'm also getting to the point with
okay,
this technology that it's like it's like the nail soup. It's designed to never be finished, you know, so that it's perpetually funded. So you just don't want it, because if it's done, the program's over, the money stops. So it's always in a state of being updated and improved, and that's just the way everything is. Like you got to buy a new phone every couple of years. Everything's outdated and moved on.
Right. And this is the whole idea of Golden Dome 1, Golden Dome 2. Oh, they came up with the better missile 1, better missile 2. Now people can use 3D printers and AI or whatever to make missiles. So the terrorists have gotten more sophisticated. We need a more sophisticated Golden Dome.
It's AWACS, isn't it? Didn't we have AWACS? Wasn't that the kind of
Bradley Manning's father, Tinker Air Force Base, AWACS, yes. And then the Carter Barracks in England, yeah, the Welshman. So yes, we've had AWACS. We're going to have AWACS 2, AWACS 3, I think. And you mentioned Starlink, Aaron. This is, I think it's about 20,000 satellites now. It's going to go to 40,000. The best thing you could ever ask for as far as surveillance. And if there is some kind of tie-in, like Task Force was saying with Project Blackjack, everyone said, "Oh no, that's false, that's fake." Until for 8 years they said we made up Project Blackjack. Now everybody says it's Project Blackjack. Well, if that's the case, then was she also right about there's a bio link with our phones, or a bio link with something they can see in a camera or our facial recognition, and then they can track us from space? I think that's what we're talking about is, hey, you might be saying we've got the 40,000 satellites up there. I think how many have they put up? 20,000.
But I definitely think you're right that it is the Project Blackjack, just like Task Force was saying. Right when I saw it, that was, you know, I mean,
what was
exactly what it is.
Moving moon, you know, that there's like, it's not the moon. It was showing this, you know, this half moon that was moving across the sky, you know.
there is the Eye of Sauron type of, there is this argument that you could create a pandemic on the world in the world and just have your military rotating the earth. Just move all the bases and forward operating bases instead of countries, just move them into space, and that way they're untouchable by the unwashed, the untouchables, so the deplorables. So there's a lot of things going on here, and we're watching it unfold. It's going to be Tuesday, right? It's not. We don't have to wait till next week. It's going to be Tuesday. We're going to find out the answer.
We'll have to reconnect with Andrea Shea King. I'm sure she's still down there in Cape Canaveral.
Yeah, and what's amazing about all this is Andrea Shea King told me in 2017, hey, the Russians came in here. We gave it all to the Russians. Roger Krona at United Launch Alliance gave it all to the Russians. The F-1 rocket, which is like the Falcon engine, we gave to the Russians for the Saturn V. And it all went to Kazakhstan. And then we had to buy all this stuff. So it was all exfiltrated. All the money got exfiltrated. And this kid becomes, at the same time, he's 22. This Jared Isaacman becomes a billionaire in his 20s, where he could sign a marker for $1 million at a Trump casino. So I think that's maybe what's happening here is let the United States go ahead and put 20 to 30% of our GNP into this war. Then we'll give it again to China. We'll give it again to, like Mark was saying, to Russia. And then the spin cycle starts all over again.
Mm-hmm. Here, I'll read here from NASA's website. Or actually, this is the NASA website. NASA, Axiom Space, and SpaceX are targeting 8:22 a.m. Tuesday, June 10th for launch of the fourth private astronaut mission to the International Space Station, Axiom Mission 4. The mission will lift off from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The crew will travel to the orbiting laboratory on a new SpaceX Dragon spacecraft after launching on the company's Falcon 9 rocket. The targeted docking time is approximately 12:30 p.m. Wednesday, June 11th. So fascinating. That'll be going on. Maybe we'll do a little live stream on that, I guess, Tuesday morning. But I was going to play your Twitter video here, and then we can come back and do a few comments, maybe talk to Mike Benz in Texas. Anything else?
Yeah, Mike Benz in Texas. Yeah, and then Birth of a Nation with this.
Oh, yeah.
You're the super Jew, so we have to do Birth of a Nation.
All right, we'll do a little bit there. So here, we'll watch this 2 minutes, and we'll be coming back.
Okay, hello everybody. Trump,
Musk,
Trump, Musk. The big fight, the big shootout, the big tete-a-tete, the big boxing match between the two of them. What is it about? What is it about? It's about space. It's about in-your-face space race. It's about a space base in space. It's about a military low Earth orbit, LEO, whatever you want to call it, space base. And it's about that dream and who's going to pay for it. And the key cog in this whole thing is a guy named Isaacman. This Jared Isaacman is who Elon Musk wanted to get in there as the NASA administrator. The NASA administrator is going to pay for all this stuff. I don't want to pay for it if I'm Elon Musk. I want the NASA administrator to pay for it. Now, here's a guy, Isaacman, who was on one of Musk's flights, one of these Falcon 9 flights. He's made $1 billion at the age of 42 from basically the exfiltration of our whole space program to Russia. He's into all the crypto and the Israeli-Russian crypto in Malta, the whole thing. He's steeped into it. We covered it for 8 years. So he's a character. And they're probably, this guy flies jets, this Isaacman flies jets in addition to being an astronaut. And Musk is going to Montana with him. They're probably going to be doing a big, highway to the danger zone, with the right stuff and flying planes this weekend in Montana to push this guy through, this Isaacman through as the NASA administrator. And Trump's saying, no, the guy's a Democrat. So that's kind of what's going on here. And they're pulling out all the stops. And Elon looks like this is, a blood sport at this point. And it looks like they're pushing also on the PR side with this Maverick and Goose show that's going to be coming up in Montana this weekend. So It's all forming up. It's all out there on Substack. Plus, I've done 2 videos today on the background on this. But we really covered this from the get-go. We've covered it for 8 years. We've talked about United Launch Alliance. We've talked about the exfiltration to these to Russia and some of the folks from Israel that were fronting these organizations. We've talked about the money laundering in Malta. We've talked about the Waves organization, or the Waves crypto coin on Malta. It's all out there on the Substack. It's a lot of details, so you have to go to the Substack to get the details. But it's looking like in your face space race is happening right now.
And there you have it. Oop, are we back?
Well, yeah, well, I think I was going a little M&M there for a while. I was seeing myself with P. Diddy at 8 Mile, space in your face, But anyway, I got a little out of control. I'm sorry about that.
That is what's happening.
But this is about space, and we'll. I see Carmadoc saying, "I don't think the Tesla went to space." I agree. I think that was a fake. I think they had an AI fake of the car, and I can't remember if it was a monkey driving the car, or if it was the doggy driving the car, but I think that was fake. I think we can safely say that the Elon's Tesla did not go to space.
Mm-hmm. So you want to talk about the birth of a nation, I guess, or just the
Well,
Israel?
I just want to say that as every time you break a big story, we broke a big story on the Isaacson thing.
Mm-hmm.
You seem to get these trolls from everywhere, and they're trying to say, you're Pizzagate. No, you're not. We're not Pizzagate. We're the ones who put Podesta Group out of business, right? Podesta Group. We didn't put them out of business on Pizzagate. We put them out of business on a company called ARMZ. John Podesta owned a company called ARMZ. So I just want to mention that people say we're anti-Semitic. I do a show here with Super Jew. Okay, you can't get any more Abonim drawer than that. No, maybe not. Than Aaron Adler. People saying
we're. I wanted to tell everybody about Habanim drawer. Because I mentioned it in your in your Twitter yesterday, and it's one of those things that is not all that well known, you might say. But I think when you hear a lot of folks in the alternative media nowadays say the Jews. It would be better if they would focus in, very laser focus on these groups inside the Jews that could be the deep state and could be, really, the dark hand that we're working against here. And certainly the comment I throw out all the time is Habonim Dror. Okay. And so Habonim Dror is the socialist Zionist group who I believe is, one of the world leaders of clandestine operations. And the reason I use them is in replacement of the term that you and McDuff came up with years ago, the school play, right? So you guys say school play, right? And we all get school play in the community here. We hear school play. We all kind of know what school play is. And these guys are the socialist Zionist drama. Like they're very focused on drama and politics, right? And so like they've got a whole youth movement, a whole group. We're going to go to their Wikipedia here. I'll show you some of the famous people.
I say in Bible times, they're what you call the Sadducees.
Well, yeah, they're a very focused group that exists today.
Yes,
has people operating today. Stanley Fisher, from the Federal Reserve Bank, Sacha Baron Cohen, the actor. Who Dave Underdown always likes to talk about Sacha Baron Cohen and his antics and everything, right? But here they are, Habanim Dror, and I think whenever we see school play, I throw this in because these guys are very focused on acting. They have these youth drama camps, summer camps for kids, and then when you graduate through that process, you're either going to be a politician who's very good at acting, or you're going to be an actor who's very into politics. And
or just plain old Mossad.
Yeah, well, there's probably a few in there.
This is a big Mossad recruiting organization. This Boy Scouts from Mossad is what this is. And I think you're smart to go and focus like this. Again, try to remember the people accusing us of anti-Semitism. Our research group does the Birth of a Nation. And what I love about our Birth of a Nation, Aaron, that 5-part series, is that we go right to the first foreign minister, Abba Eban, So not ABBA, the group, showing me and showing you and all the ABBA songs. Don't think of that ABBA. Think of the first foreign minister of Israel. That's who we go to do the series about the creation of Israel. That only puts the founders in a higher level. And who's talking about, and this is a serious point, who's talking about the Israeli settlers' point of view, right? You got 6 million killed, right? Everybody says that, that's ridiculous that 6 million weren't killed. And the United Nations is who put the Israeli people into the Middle East. So if you don't tell the story from the beginning and you start in the middle, you start in the middle of some kind of protest on some kind of campus with some Palestinian terrorist, you don't get the whole story of, hey, there was a mandate by the United Nations and they were attacked from all sides. 5 or 6 wars now, right? With 5 or 6 or 7 nations all collectively surrounding the country and murdering women and children. So, and then they were using the Gaza as an aircraft carrier to move in terrorists. So everyone's saying, okay, this is a horrible genocide. They're rolling up the Gaza and all these kids are getting murdered. And I agree with that. But you have to look at it from the settlers' point of view. And the only people, right, that are willing to do that is Neighborhood News, right? Not only creating the documentary to begin with the previous generation, but now we're showing it again, right? And we're the only people out there standing up for the Israeli settlers and looking at it from their point of view.
Did you have a comment on that, Mark? I actually, so that's enough for Habonim Dror right now. I'll get my good Mossad, bad Mossad show going over here at Neighborhood News soon enough once we're ready to go. But I wanted to highlight also a collection from the American Jewish Archives of Rabbi Herbert Friedman, the rabbi of Les Wexner, the one who founded the Wexner Heritage Institute. Certainly, if you want to find all of the Jeffrey Epstein characters, the network that Jeffrey Epstein was connected to is still in operation. They're out there, and they can all, or some of them can be found here. And Abba Eban, certainly Herb is a great guy. Herb's a hero of ours here, even though his network got captured and turned to, bad things through the Wexner group, and, Epstein and all that is a symptom of it. But him and Abba Eban had a lot of time together, Herb and Abba Eban. So through this collection here, you'll be able to see lots of speeches and pictures and other material from Abba Eban. If you wanted to,
I'm interested in Mark's comment about the Sadducees, because are you saying that there is a layering or a hierarchy in Israel where some are more priestly, like the Sadducees were back in the destruction of the temple in 70 AD? Is that what you're saying?
I just think that part of Judaism, still exists.
Could be in the Catholic Church too.
There's no afterlife, but just like in short, because the Pharisees, like modern Judaism that we have, descends from the Pharisees. Okay. But the Sadducees were, there was no afterlife, and, essentially do good things, and life is life, is, a Sadducee. And
I think it's a lot more, 20th and 19th century European corruption that ended up co-opting the former Holy Land. Like the British Israelism, right? We've got the British.
We got to go back to the British Mandate,
right? There's this, yeah.
And what's going on now, is to me essentially an attempt to try and recoalesce what was the Ottoman Empire under Turkish NATO, that part of it.
Rothschild ain't no Sadducee. He's just a banker. That's my point, I guess.
Well, if he was, I would say that might have been part of it. Who were the money changers?
Mm-hmm. But we can continue. I could play some. Birth of a Nation is such a long documentary. It's hard to. I just watch the whole thing. But yeah, it's here.
You don't have to. We don't. I mean, you can watch it on your own. But I really would expect, people who are even-minded, and you hear these Palestinian terrorists and so forth, who murdered the kids in Washington, D.C. a couple of in the shadow of, here's Dan Bongino standing next to Kash Patel. In their shadow, the murder happens. Now, this is a publicly announced event, right, that they're going to have on Pennsylvania Avenue, and you don't have any diplomatic security. You have enough armed diplomatic security services to go to Wuhan. You have enough armed diplomatic security services to send Paul Whelan to Columbine. You have enough armed diplomatic security services to sell David Hogg in a mass formation psychosis at Homestead High School, but you don't have enough armed diplomatic security services across the street from the FBI building. This is where, and I know Kash Patel was just on Joe Rogan. Hey, Kash, get the auto pen. If you can't sign the document to release, Senator Kennedy had the great comment. It's like, are you going to release the 9/11 documents? Or not the 9/11 documents, the Epstein documents? And Kash Patel says yes. And then he comes back and says, is that going to be in my lifetime?
I find it weird. Kash was on a podcast with Joe Rogan, and what's his name? JD Vance was on a podcast with Theo Vaughn at the exact moment that Trump and Elon had their spat, and so that both of those guys were asked to give a live, off the cuff response, because they had not been briefed on it, and they were actually with the interviewer at the time that happened. So I find it's weird timing, a lot of weird timings going on here.
I think a lot of the songs, we have a soundtrack now for Birth of Israel. We have the whole ABBA soundtrack. So we can play the sound, Knowing Me and Knowing You, Money, Money, Money. We have Chiquita. Yeah. We've got a whole soundtrack now that is going to make the Birth of Israel a lot more funny. We got ABBA to begin with, but now we have the ABBA soundtrack. So there you go.
Absolutely. You want to do a few comments and
sure.
We'll get on our way. Or we
really
didn't talk about the Texas thing. You want to talk Texas or?
Mike Bentz did a thing about Texas, and he did a thing about LNG, and he said, hey, the Nord Stream pipeline, they blew it up so the Russians can't send gas to Europe. And that's so that these LNG barons in Texas can sell their LNG through the pipelines in Europe, and which is all well and good. I went and visited and took trains along those pipelines, over there, and we went down to the LNG ports. But as close as we get to, he does mention Dick Cheney and Halliburton have the rights for oil and gas in the area of the Dnieper, where Kolomoisky and Zelensky's father have their oil and gas rights. He does mention that, so I give him credit for that. But he kind of misses where the LNG ports are, and he misses the Clinton connection. The Clinton connection with Tahir Javid in Port Arthur, and he misses the Monkey Island. How can you forget a name like Monkey Island, where the LNG port was going to be with Hunter Biden? So he gets it kind of wrong. He's in West Texas. Beaumont's actually in East Texas, and he misses Louisiana. So what I'm going to do from now on is whenever Mike comes out with and he's just walking in West Texas. He's actually in Austin. He's about 5 miles out, and he's just walking around West Texas. And my point is that it's great to be state sponsored. And if you're not state sponsored, Mike used to work for the State Department. If you're not state sponsored, you better go there. You better burn some shoe leather. And we just go through here how we, in our journalism, go to all these places and show you, right? So don't believe us if you think it's, conspiracy theory. Look at there's the LNG terminal right there. We're not making this up.
Yep, the Ukraine, Monkey Island, Hunter Biden pipeline. That was while he was on the board of Burisma. So folks were thinking there might have been a Ukraine connection there. I think probably like a Kolomoisky acolyte or, some Chabad Lubavitch group said, go check this out, Hunter. At that point, Hunter's working for Kolomoisky and Chabad Lubavitch, and they're having him go check out various potential deals is all, So
I can't remember if it was which of the Ukrainian billionaires was Biden was fronting for. But I think it was Dmitry Firtash, but it could have been the other one. It could have been
Hynansky, remember that Hynansky guy?
It's still infuriating to see
Okay,
natural gas like from Texas being sold into Eastern Europe. Okay, because our electric utilities have decided they want windmills and they want solar farms. Okay, but they don't want to have like use natural gas to provide electricity.
We covered this in Albion, where right now they're trying to put a solar farm to steal farmland in central Michigan. Carmadoc, has provided some video footage of that. This is the new takings. This is the new takings, right? The new way of grabbing people's farmland, as Mark's saying. This is a new BlackRock thing where we'll just put eminent domain in there, and the liberals won't argue with a solar farm. They're not going to argue with a wind farm. If they said, "Oh, we're going to put in a oil well," you'd have all kinds of resistance. But if you say you're going to put in a solar farm or a wind farm, now I can take your land, and that's what's happening. And so we seem to be the only news outlet talking about it.
Well, you'll be here in Michigan in August for folks who are looking to get a summer vacation on their calendar.
Book writing.
Book writing. We might have special guests, some field trips, other things. We'll do a separate show and talk all about it, and get maybe some Eventbrite tickets out there so people can book, and really make a solid plan for their summer. But it'll be the second half of August. So, second half of August before Labor Day. It'll be great. Definitely George will be out here. We'll be having a big charrette. And here I'll do some comments and
I did want to say I talked to Peter Duke today. The Library of Alexandria is being recovered. It was all burned down, as you know. The 750 greatest books of all time, the Great Library, all burned down. And now Peter Duke is restoring that. Not only do you get the 750 greatest books of all time, but all free, but you also get summaries, ChatGPT summaries. You also get podcasts, the Google LLM podcasts. And then we're actually reaching out to the authors. We want to interview all these authors. So it's really more fun than you can shake a stick at.
Here on screen is the Duke Report Substack. Certainly Peter's been cranking on Substack nowadays.
The latest one that he's talking about here with Truth or Consequences, I'm trying to remember who the author is. Michael. Anyway, basically the idea. Michael Hoffman, yeah. But he does a lot of the stuff that is the early days of the United States and the Anglo influence, Anglo-American establishment, and August Belmont being a Rothschild agent, coming in during the financial panics of 1837 and buying up everything for pennies on the dollars, and the Morgan House of Morgan being a front bank for the House of Rothschild, and World War I and World War II being a kind of destroy and rebuild, put everybody in debt so you own them, and so forth. So it's a little bit on the conspiratorial side, but really pretty well sourced.
Interesting here. Yeah, here's Michael Hoffman's Substack.
These are books you wouldn't be able to get anyplace else. Again, we do. And as soon as they see the swastika, they think somehow you're a right-wing site. Here I am, 256 times more Cherokee than Elizabeth Warren, and she had the autopan. Here I'm doing a show with the Super Jew. Okay. All right. We did the show of the birth of Israel. Get off our back.
No, they won't be on our back. I'm not too worried about that anymore. They don't want to draw attention to things like Habonim Dror that no one else talks about. I mean, keep going and we'll just keep talking about Habonim Dror and World Karen Hayasad. And, we can talk Chabad Lubavitch all day. There's very few of us online even talking Chabad Lubavitch. But, I was thinking the other day, do you think, not to, throw shade at Kolomoisky, but he's so much less, not that he's not very intimidating, and that the whole pool of shrimp eaten by the sharks in his office and all the scariness of Kolomoisky, but Mogilevich was so much scarier. Do you think they almost had to do like a public relations campaign at Chabad Lubavitch where it was like, guys, we're getting a little too scary over here. Nobody's even going to believe we're Jewish anymore and that there's anything to this. We're just so intimidating, because Mogilevich, I mean, he'll crap your pants. You look at that guy and he's going to cut your head off. I mean, yeah, but, they retire Mogilevich. It was just too scary.
I think
It was-
Moglavich's health was getting the worst of him. I
okay.
agree. He was a much better bad guy, and he was much more of a crime boss, where chopping people's fingers off and so forth. The old Al Capone model in Crimea is where he was going. And Kolomoisky, really, at the end of the day, is more of an entrepreneur. He sees himself as more of an Elon Musk. He's got the 1+1 television network. He put Zelensky as his puppet. He is into the oil and gas with his father, with Zelensky's father. He's into the real estate. They're buying up so much real estate for pennies on the dollar right now. We talked about Sage Hotels. Sage Hotels owns IHG. IHG owns all of, I think it's not just Henry Crown and the Hilton. I think they own the Hyatt and the Crown Plaza. you can't believe how many hotels. Who is that?
Holiday Inn.
Holiday Inn. And we're supposed to believe, now this is where we, as you know, doing a show with the Super Jew, we talk about it. How is it the guy who owns the Sage Hotels, his son is the one who supposedly throws the bomb in Tel Aviv? Come on, that's a Habanim drawer move. You know, that's a
school play, you know, that's
school
just
play.
that's my way, you know, because school play, you know, I was just looking to change it up a little bit. We say school play so much. I was looking for some other way to, you know, describe the school play in short fashion, and that's where I throw in Habanim drawer all the time. But yeah, you have Sage Hospitality partnering with IHG.
They're buying up all these hotels like crazy, right? They're taking all this Ukraine money. 58% of the money, even Zelensky says that they've laundered, and they launder it through Malta, through the Bitcoin that this new NASA administrator, through the Waves Bitcoin, and Mark mentions the Catholic Church, the Sovereign Military Order of the Vatican Bank on Malta. They've run it through there like nobody's business, through the Chinese laundry there, and that's where all this money is going. It's going in all these hotel chains, not just Cleveland, not just Louisville, not just Miami. All over the United States, Pittsburgh.
Even just the money they're just printing from the Fed. Where does it go? Probably right here. Just
through Kolomoisky.
It's just going in and being used to buy this stuff.
Yeah, Kolomoisky has to do one of those finger things where they're counting, and he just has to touch 1 billion, and he just touches another billion. That's easy to do 300 times. That's all he has to do, and then it's Kolomoisky's money.
This is Waves. I've heard you mention Waves. I didn't.
All programmers. These are all programmers from Russia. Dmitry Alperovich brought them over, and his father. They were all weaponeers. They were all cyber weapon writers. They write this cryptocurrency in Malta, again, all operating out of the Bank of the Vatican, so you can't trace anything. And here, this guy, this new NASA administrator, is running all of his payments through there. If you have Starlink, right, for internet service, Shift 4, you're going through Malta. So no one's picked up this story yet, and this is why you get the smears, is because people go, "Oh my God."
Yeah, but this goes back. Did you bring this up to Franklin National Bank? Like that bank failure, that was bigger than BZCI in '74. Bring that up because that involved the Vatican Bank. This was
1974, huh?
This was
well. If you look at okay, just before we go to that, which is the Franklin, the Franklin Bank and the savings and loan scandal and the Keating Five. Before we do that with George Bush, basically, that was his way of putting his thumb on McCain and all these senators.
This is even before that. This was like the first bank failure, like after we went off the gold standard. This is a 1974.
If folks couldn't tell yet, Mark's real into the economic news.
Michelle Sindona, and he was some kind of a mafia.
Oh yeah. Carol brought him up recently in a call.
He was,
interesting.
This mafia, and this mafia banker, and but when I went into this, I wondered if this was what that whole Godfather Part 3 was dealing with.
Well, they were connected in with the
propaganda that P2 this Masonic group.
Yeah, well, this was all set up by the CIA to run drugs after World War II with the Havana Plan, which is the basically the running the drugs from Sicily to Cuba. So this is the CIA guy, the Hallowell Plan,
Mhm.
right? And so they were going to say, hey, we have all these mobsters already in place. We can do all the laundry of all the existing. We have, kind of money laundering for all the rackets and the drugs. Why don't we just have these organizations be our outlets for the new heroin, and then fentanyl and so forth use the same networks? So yeah, this Franklin Bank is interesting because you do get into that perm index and setting up Meyer Lansky and so forth, the mega group and so forth, setting up these guys as a crime syndicate after World War II.
Oh, was this the template for future operations?
This is like a Kolomoisky Bank. I totally agree with you. You just run it through, and it can be in the smallest little towns. You don't have to have a lot of activity. You can run this money through, and then later on they find out about it after all the money's been run through there.
No, fascinating stuff. It's like that bank that got blown up in Youngstown, Ohio recently, or like last year. I remember that. I think that was a Chase Bank as well. So
Banco de Ambrosia, McDuff says. And why don't you just go to the crypto background of this NASA administrator, because he is the number one money launderer. That's why he's backed off so much. He doesn't want to name.
You're saying back to
Yeah,
Wade. Okay.
Yeah, this Jared, because he is so up to his eyeballs in crypto money laundering. It's not even funny, and it's through Malta, right? It's through the sovereign, bank of, the sovereign army of Malta, the Pope's bank. It's just so Pietro Benassi. It's not even funny. This unholy alliance between these Mossad guys and this Italian intelligence organization. So you got to bring that up. And he's like, well, I've never been to Malta before, so that's why I went 48 times. Why don't you read this?
Before being chosen by President-elect Trump to lead NASA, Jared Isaacman guided his payments company Shift4 into the crypto market. Isaacman founded Shift4 in 1999 when he was 16. You're right. Okay. And built it into a $9.3 billion company, thanks in part to a bet on stablecoins. Shift4 recently launched a pay with crypto offering for the 200,000 merchants on its platform, making it possible to spend crypto at hotels, restaurants, and stadiums.
And this is basically, they want to be the banker of all the high rollers. You have this thing called a Sky Tab with him, and basically you can take all your mob money, keep it in crypto, and then your Sky Tab follows you. And they want to move all of the economy off of the regular dollar onto this mob money Sky Tab. So there's way more to the story with Jared Isaacson than we haven't even scratched the surface with the Malta and the crypto.
And why does a billionaire need a job anyway? It's like these jobs for billionaires is like, give me a break. A billionaire doesn't need a job. If you're a billionaire, it's to like you can do your own thing. Why do you want to take a job with all the stress and all this stuff if you're not?
Because
you don't
want anybody else to be a billionaire, and so that becomes your function, is to make sure nobody else can get to where you're at.
This is Sky Tab by Shift, I believe. Shift4 you're talking, George.
Yeah,
but this comes into, because you can't anymore because of currency controls. This has replaced the suitcases full of currency or the mattress full of currency, because you can't just take it to the bank anymore.
That's right. This is a whole kind of near cash, or it's cash. It's just invisible cash. Al Capone would have died for this, right? Al Capone said, the reason I bought a bank is because, it's a lot easier to launder money through banks I own rather than banks I don't, right? And this is this is the same story. If you own a bank, you become the laundromat for all kinds of operations.
Fascinating stuff. Well, Elon, we we're still dark MAGA over here, but just
big time.
Just lay off the whole, screwing the country over your petulant, arguments, and we'll be okay, I guess, right? I mean,
We're
no petulant temper tantrums, and everybody's fine.
It might have also been to try and blow a hole into the news cycle and maybe get the Ukraine Russia talk out of the news cycle, or cool it down. Because we're not talking about the fact that Lindsey Graham and Senator Blumenthal are over in Europe undermining the Trump's presidency. which some are saying they should be arrested for. So
Logan Act. Here's Tony Blinken with the BlackBerry, the Biden BlackBerry, and he's doing foreign policy. He's not the Secretary of State anymore. That's a Logan Act violation if I ever seen it. Treason, really. I mean, almost death penalty. So yeah, these BlackBerries are the gift that keeps on giving.
I commented in one of our other shows the other day. I can't remember with Greg or Terry or whoever, but it was 2014, right before the Maidan Revolution, when John McCain and Chris Murphy, they sent a Republican Democrat team. Chris Murphy, the junior senator from Connecticut, went over with John McCain in 2014, and they did a whole thing at the rally, and they fomented the Maidan Revolution and everything. And so now here we are 10 years later, and Lindsey Graham, John McCain's best friend, and the senior senator now from Connecticut are over there. And I found that interesting,
Are they the
signal.
ones when Zelensky talked to the United States about what he was going to do? Are these the two that he talked to?
Yeah. They're this is under the cloak of secrecy, right? These diplomatic missions, and they ran up hotel bills. You want to talk about a sky tab? Each one of them had a $400,000 sky tab. I think they used sky tab when they were there. I don't know how you can run up a $400,000 bill in 3 days, unless somebody had a good time. Maybe the whole staff. But interestingly enough, these were the two easiest guys to get interviews with. I can't count how many times I talked with Blumenthal and can't count how many times I talked with Lindsey Graham. It makes you feel like they're, like Mark is saying, even though you got a cush job, even though you're a billionaire or whatever, if you don't keep going like Mick Jagger, they'll kill you. So Mick Jagger will be 85, what he's doing, and can't get no satisfaction because he's afraid he's going to end up like the other guy that went in the pool, the other Rolling Stone that ends up in the pool. Hey, you can quit anytime you want, but that's your last day. Right. So I think that's why Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal, he looks like a human corpse. That's why these guys keep going and going.
Yeah, he does.
Well, I guess they went and talked to Macron too.
Yeah, they want the French boots on the ground. They want English boots on the ground with Starmer. They want American boots on the ground. They're trying to say that this is the same thing as Normandy, right? This is the battle with a guy like Kolomoisky. This is why we focus. This is why I asked Mike Benz, just say the word Kolomoisky. You got 1.5 million people. Just say how corrupt they are. Just talk about Azov, and that'll end the war. If once people know it's a corrupt endeavor, they'll quit this thing. But this is just the worst kind of money pit, and it's going to get worse than a money pit. It's going to be a graveyard for American soldiers.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump to a few comments here.
Sure, let's do that
on screen here. This was back when we were talking about Skylab. Kathy Sue, hey Kathy, thanks for being here. The guy from Australia sued the U.S. government for causing emotional stress.
Is that Malone?
What's that?
Malone sued Indira Verma because
no, this was the Skylab. The guy in Western Australia who the Skylab apparently fell near his house sued the U.S. government.
Oh, okay.
Skylab re-entered Earth's atmosphere in 1979, scattering debris over Australia, Indian Ocean. Right. Karmadoc, hey Karmadoc, Soylent Green and Golden Dome. Yep. Meanwhile, it's just an electromagnetic net that controls anything coming and going. They already control the undersea cables. Yep.
That makes sense.
It's all gone. Period. Tuesday. No new crap happening Tuesday.
Well, they could have filmed everything in AI, and all my friends from Sun Microsystems, I blew it going into journalism. They're all working for NVIDIA now, and they're all worth 100 million or more. All my guys that were in the graphics were doing the graphics cards at they had this thing called the GX card. They all the two guys that were doing the GX card, the graphics card for the Sun Spark Station, they went off to form NVIDIA. They're worth over $1 billion. Those two guys, and Jensen's worth over $1 billion. And we ended up doing citizen journalism. Here we go.
Well,
here's and I just when you get into like the AI, because a lot of it's data entry, and so just go back. Remember James Comey, FDI director. and they do scan on his documents, and they couldn't find him, but then they put corny in, CRY, and because it kind of looked like an M. But how would artificial intelligence pick up that kind of
Misspelling and intentional misspelling,
that kind
Well,
of trickery?
It wouldn't initially, but there's a thing called post training where all you have to do is have one, citizen journalist say it's not Comey, that's Corny, Corney, and then now it's trained, and now it picks it up. You just have to have one person. This is why we had the AI whisperer during the election come, the guy with the gray beard. I won't say anymore.
Yeah,
the man from the high mountain came to the Metroplex Center there in Lambertville, and he said, "You're going to lose if you don't train the AI." Remember when he came and said that if you don't put out the messaging for the AI will take you over and will destroy you and will destroy Trump, and Kamala Harris will be your next president. So if you're not out there with the great journalism every day seeding the AI will crush you like a Russian tank. And we did that. We did the adaptive. This is the thing Suchir Balaji was working on, the adaptive training of the AI. And we did that. And we trained Grok, and we trained Open AI. You just have to put the truth seed out there, like Mark is saying. And now all the subterfuge is gone. You just need one person to say corny. Now AI picks it all up in hundreds of thousands of documents in seconds. Right. And that's what we did. And I'm not saying we won the election for Trump, but remember when the AI whisperer came to
I hope he's coming back in August.
Yeah. And the
AI whisperer, we hope we see you in August.
The AI whisperer came and said, you guys need to be working out there every day to seed truth into the AI engine, and you'll beat the fake news. Right. And that's what we did. And I think we were the only one doing that. We were the only one seeding the truth into the AI clouds at that time.
Does the AI seek truth? That it could differentiate, truth. It could like decipher lies and find the truth.
Grok does, because Elon owns it, but I told OpenAI totally woke. The one that Bezos has totally woke. Meta totally woke. This is the big thing that, remember Ketchum, Idaho, where all the planes flew into Idaho, and they said, we're going to bring in Sam Altman, we're going to AI, and AI is going to beat Trump. This is what we were going up against. And we only had one engine against their 5 or 6 engines. We only had Grok, and the AI whisperer came, and we seeded the clouds with truth, and we win.
Would you say that AI, the different AIs are almost developing personalities? Because I think before it started happening, we all thought it would just be uniform, that computers were stale and uniform and they would all end up in their own way. And it seems like more so these AIs are developing, personalities in a way that Grok does it a little more like this. Perplexity does it a little more like that, and there's still AI, we're all still humans. We all still need to eat and drink and go to the bathroom and do the same typical things that humans do, but we all have our own personalities. And the AI is kind of being that way in itself, to the point where you can't just ask the AI. You need to ask many different AIs.
Yes.
You then still, the human, need to synthesize, because all these AIs are never going to become, this central God of knowledge and consciousness and truth. It's just that won't exist. Computers, humans, anything else, no matter how far we go, that point won't exist. And so you're just going to have to deal with the AIs having different personalities and find the one you like, or, break up with one and go out with another one. I don't know.
Yes.
There was a Star Trek, the original series.
Oh boy, don't get us banned if we play Star Trek clips that Warner Brothers gets us. So.
No, they're on Paramount, so they probably won't mind.
Oh, I thought it was okay.
But they, I remember there was an episode where they had been, I can't remember the whole thing, but they had finished up and they left this planet, and whatever the planets, whoever were on the planet, they had been on a ship, whatever, and they reprogrammed the computer. and gave it like a female emotion, and Spock's trying to talk to this computer, okay, and it's got this sultry,
Spock
voice,
trying
and Spock's not every part of it, and the thing starts crying, So I was thinking about that. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. Well, they actually, you can actually prompt it to say, "Tell me a story to make me cry." You can say this to AI, and it'll say, "Well, there's two little birds that were flying. They were mates, and they were coming from the nest every day, and one flew into a window, right? One flew into Donnie O'Sullivan fake news at the CNN newsroom and died, and then the other one had to go back to the nest, and it was lonely every day." Right. So AI came up with that story and makes you sad, and AI can make you laugh and all these other things. But I do agree they have personalities. The Katy Perry created space. This is Anthropic with Jeff Bezos. And he has the Blue Origin. Blue Origin's only a hopper. It only goes up to Kármán line and back. And that's where William Shatner has his experiences, as Mark is saying, right? That's where he has his experiences. But my point is that you create space. She said we went up and create space. If you put nanoparticles in your lip, all the women did it. They all put the nanoparticles in the lip, and then when they came down, they had the bends, and all their lips were swollen with duck lips, if you remember when they came out of that fake capsule, right? And see how their lips are somewhat normal, right? And this is the new thing. I think they're going to try to do space tourism with the injection of the lip injection, right? And like they've got their hair dancing in the wind, right at the space capsule.
I saw this Alex Stein video, and he had this on here, and he had gone to a council meeting down in Texas, and he had this on here, and he went there to just be over the top. We'll have to find out. It was just hilarious.
You see the
it was all fake. That it was all fake. No, they didn't go to space. They were just flying around up there having a good old time.
Yeah. and if you look at the lips of especially Katy Perry, the Anthropic AI has taken the personality of Katy Perry. Anthropic, if you talk to it, has that same kind of here she is. Just doesn't make any sense. Here she goes.
Well, okay, here. Unmuted here.
And through everything, and they show up in so many different places. But daisies are just so resilient. And flowers, for me, I believe, are like God's laughter and God's smile. And I brought a daisy because I have so much love for my daughter Daisy, and I have so much love for Mother Earth. And I believe you can see the beauty in the Mother Earth in a single resilient daisy.
That's all we'll need from Katy Perry there.
And maybe drugs. Maybe this is the new high where you can ingest the high up there, and then as you come down, the bends causes your blood vessels to open up, and then you get a super rush, or something happened that we don't know what it is. But if you ask Anthropic these questions now, you get Katy Perry type answers. And so I think this is the important thing to know, that every one of the AI has a different personality. You've got to seed the AI that you believe in with truth, and that's how you win elections.
Absolutely. Here, what, you want us to watch this?
Yes,
okay, all right. Here, he wants us. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Take the edge off here, but
what? This is Alex Stein.
I am here tonight because we're in Grapevine. You guys are very familiar, obviously, DFW Airport, and I am a commercial airline pilot for Spirit Airlines, and I'm a little frustrated because if you turn on the TV, all I'm seeing is a bunch of bimbos in space.
The moon, you guys, I will have to tell you, look at the moon.
That's right. They're sending Lauren Sanchez and Oprah Winfrey's, I don't even know what, Oprah Winfrey's lesbian lover, I guess, to space. And I just think that is absolutely ridiculous. It's a waste of resources. Me flying, I'm in the aerospace industry, and I don't want to try to land my plane and worry about, running into some woman with, silicone breasts or something like that. I mean, listen, are they sending them up to space to try to test the effects of Ozempic on what it does to you in a zero gravity environment? I don't know, but I know that it looks fake. And I'm not saying the Earth is flat, but I'll tell you this much, that originally we went to the moon. It was done by a bunch of Nazis. A guy by the name of Werner von Braun, who was brought over during a thing called
It's
Operation.
about it. That's well, but yeah, there is. So everybody's hawking them. Here, we'll continue on to this comment here as we talk about space. Thanks, Arthur Stone, for being here. This is an interesting one. 193 million square miles of area at the Kármán line altitude. I didn't realize that. That's that's how much playing field there is to pop the Kármán line. In terms of the surface area. You might say. So that's fascinating. Is that a lot? I mean, it seems like a lot.
That's a lot more than the surface area of the Earth because of the projection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Why did no one throw a fit over Bezos' bogus flight? Well, we did, I guess. Stage secrets like the Magician's Code. Yep, Tesla car in space. It adds the theory that everyone is part of the damn school play, right? Yep. Musk should go back to South Africa. Well, yeah, he's a citizen. Major Tom. Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. I can't remember what that could have been referring to. Cherokee, because yeah, Charles, good old Charles down there in Texas. Hey, Charles, he's Cherokee too, right? Yep. So don't forget to mention the fentanyl deaths, or you're as guilty as the dealer. Don't want to forget that. Yep, fentanyl deaths are certainly covering for a lot here in America. The
And I do want to say a shout out to Scott. We showed Peter Dukes at the Duke Report, and he has those great pictures of Scott Adams. And now that Scott Adams has cancer, you can just see that in his, it's that just diagnosed look that Scott has in his eyes. But his stepson died of a fentanyl overdose for one of the patches and so forth. And we do have to kind of remind ourselves that's what we're also in business for is we do want to stop this illegal trafficking.
I think there's homicides and, suicide, or what they're calling suicides, that are masked as fentanyl deaths. I think there's definitely all sorts of nefarious things that go on. And then, just sprinkle some fentanyl on them. I mean, you could kill anybody in San Francisco.
Mossad had a thing where they would pour fentanyl in somebody's ear because, you usually sleep on one side or the other. And then in the morning, they're dead and they go, oh, fentanyl death. How many coroners are really going to look in the ear, and they know how many coroners know how that's Mossad's thing. And they just say, oh, yeah, overdose.
Because you see so many of the deaths. Yeah. I mean, it's so common now that it's
overdose.
But I think it could be, they were dead from something else, or somebody killed them, and then they just drop her in the ear.
And they're so excited to get the organs, and they're so excited to get the bones, especially the bone marrow. They don't. Who's going to do an autopsy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. ABBA, yep. Good old ABBA. Let's see. Melodrama describes Trump Musk. They should make an opera about it. Yes. 1776. Tour. All right, yeah, we'll have to go out to Albion and get the tour there in August. Agent X11. Hey, August 11th is my birthday. I turn really old.
I think Penny's going to be in her 40s.
Yeah. Here we have it.
Penny will be in her 40s.
Truth Consequences, New Mexico. I've been there. Pretty cool place. What was this McDuff comment? This is the Banco de Ambrosio.
Yeah, he's basically talking about McDuff is somehow John's father, who's working for the various Hoover. He's working for Hoover after World War II. He's working for MacArthur during World War II. He knows the CIA is using military assets to run drugs, right? And he stops this China trade using the Navy going up to the Yangtze. His father looks like he's involved in that. While Bill Donovan has a big argument on the deck of the Nashville to stop the drug trade on the ship going up the Yangtze to Wuhan, by the way, which is where their drug port is, the CIA's drug port. So while Bill Donovan says, oh, no, we're going to take all these people that have been trained in Venice, Florida, that are flying the hump, right? And we're going to just fly the drugs back and forth from Wuhan, right? So that whole story is in McDuff's book. If you want to buy John's book about his dad, or you can get my book, McDuff Lives, or let's call him McDuff. It's a really a story of how the good guys versus the bad guys for trying to stop the drug trade in the CIA.
He was the investigator on the only espionage case ever in the State Department. Right?
The only
Still
only espionage act case ever in the with the State Department. And I mean,
the State Department should have like a bunch of espionage cases, right? But I mean,
this is what the McCarthy hearings were all about. You'd have Joe McCarthy from Wisconsin go, and Senator, there are so many communists in the State Department. I'm going to have all the communists swept out by sundown tonight. And guess who was his advisor? Roy Cohn. And Roy Cohn goes on to coach another guy named Donald Trump.
Certainly, that is the big connection that very few miss with all the things going on. Is that is Donald Trump here to take care of McCarthy's unfinished business? Is that, I guess that's what we can hope, right? Is that Trump is taking care of McCarthy's unfinished business? Because I've also heard people say that McCarthy was a diversion. McCarthy was doing damage control, and even though he talked a good game and flailed around, that he was actually there to protect certain high-level communists, which I find that doubtful. I mean, that's some reverse psychology there.
I think Roy Cohn definitely had a compromised game going on. And the reason why they did these army hearings was over Roy Cohn's private lover, a male private lover. And back then, homosexuality was just, you're done. Your career's over in the 50s. Back then, and
that's what he was kind of like. That he was, I think that was his job, was to kind of in the beginning was to compromise politicians, as a homosexual.
Yes, and they had the DC madam. There was a male DC madam as well. So if you didn't go the female, you didn't go the male. Roy Cohn was running all that, for power and control. Why else would a private? This is an army private. These second set of hearings here were hundreds of millions. This isn't with Welch sitting there. Welch is talking about let's get all the. Haven't you done enough, Senator? Trying to get rid of people. But the second set of hearings, the army hearings, was about a private in the army getting leave passes to go have homosexual trysts with Roy Cohn on the weekend. Now, why would you publicize that to 25 million people and create a mass formation psychosis over that? Because they were blackmailing people in Washington.
Okay.
They were showing how they could ruin you, right? With television. If I add television and I bring you up in front of this committee, if you don't pay the band, you're finished in Washington.
Or you get paid off because the army officer, the general, whatever, there's
Decency.
Knows, okay. So he ends up getting a role in the movie Anatomy of a Murder, as the judge.
What, the guy who said that?
Yes.
Oh,
so he went to Hollywood, became a star, but he was, they hired him, for that movie, and then he was the judge. Anatomy of a Murder.
Yeah, and it's one of the more famous kind of takedowns. And these hearings got viewership like never. There's never.
Right
there. Yeah. Welch. We're talking about 50 million people watching the cadaver here. Here we go.
Not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last,
there it is.
Have you left no sense of decency?
Okay, yeah, I've heard that. That's very famous. That guy's name is Welch, the guy who said the decency.
Yeah,
he became an actor, huh? So
he got I'm just like, they paid him back, but was he an actor then? They sent him in there. That was here's your lines.
But this is the same thing that's still going on with the Epstein victims, with Alina Habba and Matt Pottinger. The reason why we're not getting the documents, the people who were on Jeff Epstein's airplane, we know we have their cell phone information. We geofence their cell phone information, the great Peter Duke, right? We have all their information. They're just not publishing it. Why? Because they're still getting the VIG, the monthly VIG, the blackmail every month, right? That's the only reason we're not seeing the Epstein documents. Again, Kash Patel, you need an auto pen. You need a Pocahontas in your office to get the auto pen and just sign and get these documents out. 9/11, J6, you name it, September 18th, Epstein, JFK, RFK, get them out. Get the auto pen going.
Absolutely. Well, I think we can leave it right there. There's a few more comments, nothing too exciting. But yeah, thanks everybody for being here. We're switching up YouTube channels. We're doing some previous shows on the Neighborhood News Michigan channel. This, I think, is the Neighborhood News Network channel. I don't know. We're still throwing it out there. We'll be using Twitter and all the other platforms here soon enough. We're kind of going to use August as our time to really, make the stamp and make a lot of things official. Right now, we're just sort of still playing with some toys and things from before. But yeah, I don't know. Great show. And thank you everybody in the live chat for being here. Mark, any closing comments, any remarks? I found the spot clip, I think, with the woman. Maybe I'll play
Please play that.
I'll play that on the way out. I'll play that. That'll be our outro. But yeah, George, I guess maybe Wednesday we'll come back at everybody on Wednesday. These shows.
See you Wednesday.
And
the Library of Alexandria, we're bringing it back. And Tuesday, Peter Duke, 750 books, 700 of the greatest books of all time. Everything you ever could want. And we're also going to help you use AI to code a website for you, and then AI to write the book that's in your desk right now, the Great American Novel. But we're going to help you get that out as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Peter Duke and George will be at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on Tuesdays.
Tuesday at 2. So easy to remember. Tuesday at 2.
But 5 for Eastern.
Correct. 5
right,
Eastern.
5 Eastern. Right. All right. Here, we'll play some little Star Trek on the way out. Thank you all for being here. And we'll see you next time at Neighborhood News. George Webb investigates.
Come.
Is this the one?
Captain's log supplemental.
Right, good.
Engineering officer Scott informs warp engines damaged, but can be made operational and re-energized.
Computed and recorded, dear.
Computer, you will not address me in that manner. Computer.
Computed, dear.
Mr. Spock, I ordered this computer and its interlinking systems repaired.
I have investigated it, Captain. To correct the fault will require an overhaul of the entire computer system. A minimum of 3 weeks at a star base.
I wouldn't mind so much if only it didn't get so affectionate.
It also has an unfortunate tendency to giggle.
I take it that a lady computer is not routine.
We put it into Signet 14 for general repair and maintenance. Signet 14 is a planet dominated by women. They seem to feel the ship's computer system lacked the personality. They gave it one.
I'm going to play one of your Twitters on the way out here. There you have it, everyone. All right. Thank you for being here. See you next time. Yeah.
Story, the smears, the military live exercise. Here comes Scott Pelley. Here comes Donnie O'Sullivan. Here comes CNN. Here comes 60 Minutes. Same thing with J6. Exonerate Trump with Joe Biggs throwing the Capitol gates with the orange hats. Trump's exonerated more smears. Scott Pelley, January 4th. Right. So this always happens. And our latest reporting is no different with this Isaacson. We are breaking stories there, and now the smears. The two latest ones. First one is we're pizza gators. We're pizza gators. No. We said Tim Alefantis and Sanofi at Venice with the universal flu vaccine. We said in 2017 there may be some kind of false flag. Now we would call that a mass formation psychosis, since Bob Malone used that language and used a mass formation psychosis for coronavirus. But back then we called it a false flag or a school play, right, in 2017 for flu. It's 2017 with Tim Alefantis as the proposed jammed in foregone conclusion solution, which was the universal flu vaccine. Tim Alefantis, not James Alefantis. I met James Alefantis at Comet Pizza. I immediately said he was a CIA front man for Tim Alefantis, Sanofi universal flu vaccine. So let's get that straight. Then the second thing is with Scott McMahon. We had a journalism school we still do have a journalism school in Michigan. Scott's from Michigan. He kind of got railroaded on a technicality by the RNC. We wanted to help him. We wanted to have an outreach. We wanted to have a fundraiser for him. Wow, how did this get unwound? How did these good intentions get unwound? All the people said, "Oh, watch out!" George Webb went out and sought out another filmmaker from New York. No, the filmmaker from New York contacted me with 100 subscribers. I helped the filmmaker get to 30,000 subscribers, so they wanted super chat. We said we would pool, which I had 40,000 followers at the time. We would pool our resources together. So all of the money coming in, I shared with the filmmaker. He had 100 subscribers. I had 40,000, got him to 30,000, and I got the backstab after he had gotten that high subscriber number, and people were sending money to him now instead of to me. So again, no good deed goes unpunished. And of course, not only does no good deed go unpunished, but then you turn it around against the person for being a good person with misinformation. So I feel bad for Scott McMahon. But Scott, hey, I was against Flynn way before you were. I outed Flynn in 2017, way before you picked up the Flynn story. And I thought we had a commonality there. And I enjoyed your work, and I wanted to support you. And I felt bad. I thought you were getting railroaded in Michigan. So there it is. How these things get twisted just never ceases to amaze me. Not going to stop the great reporting, not going to stop the great books. It's not going to stop the Library of Alexandria with the Duke Report. It's not going to start the great things we're doing at Neighborhood News. It's not going to stop any of that. It's not going to stop the great reporting we're doing on Musk and Trump and so forth. But every once in a while, you got to do a cleanup. Clean up on aisle 6, right? Clean up on aisle disinformation. So there you go.
To support Joe Dreb and his citizen journalism, please subscribe to his Substack for $8 a month.